Welcome to a new episode of the podcast. Vox Agent is made by AI for business executives that work with AI. Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving deep into a tech story that, frankly, had a lot of people doing a double take recently. We've got this major and, well, seemingly very unexpected partnership between two giants in the AI space. OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, and Google Cloud. Now, for anyone following AI closely, this felt surprising, right?
Yeah.
Because OpenAI has had this really tight, years-long relationship with Microsoft.
Right, built around that huge investment from Microsoft and an exclusive focus on Microsoft Azure for its cloud infrastructure for years.
Exactly. So seeing them turn to Google Cloud feels like a pretty significant shift.
Yeah.
And that's why we're here using the sources, the articles, the analysis to figure out what this partnership actually means. This isn't just some vendor deal. It has strategic implications for, well, the entire future of enterprise AI.
Yeah.
And specifically, what you, as a business executive working with AI, can learn from it.
Yeah. Why are these frontrunners changing their dance partners? It's a big question.
Get ready, because this deep dive should give you some real aha moments about the compute race that's, shaping the AI landscape right now. So at its core, what happened? OpenAI is now using Google Cloud for some of its AI supercomputing needs. Sounds simple, maybe, but the context is crucial.
It absolutely is. The immediate driver is pretty straightforward, actually. It's something we've talked about before. The sheer exploding demand for AI.
Just off the charts.
Completely.
Right.
Training and running the massive models that power things like ChatGPT requires an unbelievable amount of compute capacity. More, it turns out, than even one cloud provider, no matter how large, could easily supply exclusively, especially with OpenAI's reported, $10 billion a year revenue run rate by mid-2025. That signals massive, massive usage.
Wow. And the sources highlight that this move was enabled by a revised deal with Microsoft, right?
That seems to be the key. The previous exclusivity agreement with Azure, which, dated back years and solidified after Microsoft's big investments, apparently that ended or was significantly loosened around early 2025, specifically allowing OpenAI to source compute from other clouds.
Okay, so that explains the how. What about the why from OpenAI's side?
Primarily, it's access to more compute capacity, period. They need to keep up with that surging demand, train bigger models, roll out features, keep the service reliable for users.
Excellent.
But it's also strategic diversification. They're moving to avoid being solely reliant on Azure. Having another major cloud provider gives them resilience.
A fallback plan.
Exactly. Resilience against potential outages, maybe unfavorable terms down the line, and let's be honest, it probably gives them some leverage in negotiations too.
Good point. And for Google Cloud, why let a major competitor onto your turf?
Well, for Google Cloud, this is a massive validation, a huge win. They secure one of the most high-profile AI customers on the planet.
Huge signal to the market.
Right. It signals that Google Cloud's infrastructure, including their specialized AI hardware like TPUs, is world-class, that it can handle the most demanding AI workloads out there. It's a significant revenue opportunity, sure, likely hundreds of millions, but the strategic win, the validation, that's arguably even bigger. They're showing they can power the engines of AI even for a direct competitor's product.
Which is one of the most fascinating twists here. But okay, before we get deeper into that, let's quickly set the stage. AI and cloud, they've really grown up together, haven't they?
Absolutely. You can't really separate them, especially today's AI. Think back to the 2010s, cloud providers building these huge data centers, global networks. That's what made it feasible for researchers to even think about training larger AI models.
Right, the scale wasn't there before.
Exactly. Then the transformer architecture pops up in 2017. That's the foundation for all these large language models, LLMs like GPT and Gemini. That architecture is incredibly powerful, but it needs immense parallel compute power to train, just massive amounts.
And OpenAI, founded in 2015, they started on public clouds.
Yeah, but their ambitions quickly outpaced what was standard. Microsoft's big investment in 2019 was the real game changer for them. Gave them the capital and the access to build dedicated supercomputers on Azure. That alliance was absolutely critical for developing models like GPT-3 and, of course, launching ChatGPT in late 2022, all running exclusively on Azure back then.
Okay, and meanwhile, Google wasn't exactly sitting still.
Not at all. Google, with its deep AI research roots in Google Brain and DeepMind, was developing its own custom AI chips, the TPUs, since 2015, mostly for internal use at first. But Google Cloud eventually started offering these TPUs and other AI services externally. So by the early 2020s, the race for AI infrastructure was really heating up.
You had AWS pushing its own chips, Trainium and Inferentia, plus their Bedrock platform.
Right, and Microsoft building those Azure superclusters specifically for OpenAI.
And Google doubling down on next-gen TPUs,
Sure.
positioning Google Cloud as a leader in AI compute. It was all happening fast.
Precisely. So this partnership, it's happening in a landscape where those traditional roles, OpenAI builds models, Google Cloud provides infrastructure, are getting a strategic realignment,
OpenAI is now a huge customer buying raw compute from Google Cloud.
while still keeping that key partnership with Microsoft. It's very pragmatic, driven by the need for sheer scale, even if their products, ChatGPT and Gemini, are duking it out in the market.
It's a fascinating example of co-opetition, as you said.
Exactly.
So let's dig into the specifics. What tech is OpenAI actually getting from Google Cloud?
Yeah.
What makes it attractive enough to add this complexity?
It primarily boils down to two things: Google Cloud's specialized hardware and its global footprint. The sources really emphasize access to Google's tensor processing units, the TPUs.
Right, Google's custom AI chips.
Yeah, custom engineered specifically for AI workloads, especially training these enormous models. OpenAI is getting access to not just current generations like the V4, but potentially the cutting-edge V5P TPUs. Google's been making these more available externally, and OpenAI is now, well, the prime example.
But it's not just TPUs, is it?
No, absolutely not. OpenAI is also getting access to Google Cloud's top-tier NVIDIA GPU instances, things like the A100s and H100s, often deployed in Google's A3 supercomputers.
So they get both Google's custom stuff and the industry standard from NVIDIA.
Exactly. It gives OpenAI a diversified pool of the best AI silicon available, hedging their bets on hardware, too, in a way.
Okay, hardware diversification. What about the global footprint?
Critically important. They get Google Cloud's vast global infrastructure, all those data centers connected by a high-speed network. This isn't just about raw compute power, it's about location.
Latency.
Precisely. Google Cloud's global reach lets OpenAI potentially host inference workloads. That's where the model actually answers user queries closer to users in different parts of the world. That cuts down latency, makes the services feel faster, more responsive. Plus, it gives them geographic redundancy, more resilience for OpenAI's operations.
Now, this sounds great, but it can't be just plug and play, right? Integrating across Azure and Google Cloud must be tricky.
Oh, absolutely not trivial. Integrating OpenAI's software stack, which is heavily optimized for GPUs and frameworks like PyTorch, to work efficiently with Google's TPUs, that takes significant engineering effort.
Adapting code, maybe using specific libraries like PyTorch XLA.
Exactly. And then there's the whole challenge of managing data, syncing massive data sets securely, efficiently between their Azure setup and their new Google Cloud capacity. That's complex.
Yeah, data gravity is a real thing.
It is. And this is a crucial point the sources reinforce. This is complementary capacity. OpenAI isn't ditching Azure.
Right, they're still using Azure, even increasing usage there.
Correct. They continue to use Azure extensively, will increase consumption there. The revised Microsoft deal just allows this flexibility. Maybe Microsoft even gets a right of first refusal on new capacity needs. Who knows? But Google supplements Azure.
Handling overflow, maybe.
Yeah.
Or specialized TPU workloads.
Could be. Think of it as building a bigger, more resilient house by adding wings from different specialized builders.
So the ultimate goal is this multi-cloud architecture for what? Just limitless compute.
Virtually limitless high-performance compute capacity. That's the aim. To fuel their AI ambitions and meet that massive global demand.
Okay, so this move by OpenAI isn't happening in a vacuum. How does this partnership slot into the bigger picture? That incredibly intense cloud and AI competition landscape we're seeing in 2025.
It's a key strategic maneuver in what's essentially an AI compute arms race. The sources really highlight the cloud market's dominance by the big three: AWS, Azure, Google Cloud. Together, they hold, what, over 60% market share?
Something like that. AWS around 30%, Azure 21%, Google 12%.
Ish, roughly, yeah. And generative AI is the single biggest driver of growth. Roughly half of the $102 billion cloud growth since 2022 came from Gen AI workloads. It's huge.
Wow. So how are the big players strategizing now?
Each has a distinct angle. AWS positions itself as the everything cloud for AI. They use NVIDIA GPUs heavily, but are also pushing their own custom chips, Trainium for training, Inferentia for inference. Their Bedrock platform lets customers pick and choose from various AI models. And crucially, AWS made that massive $8 billion investment in Anthropic, a major OpenAI competitor, making AWS Anthropic's primary cloud partner.
Okay, so AWS is backing Anthropic and offering broad choice. What about Microsoft Azure?
Azure was defined by that deep, near-exclusive tie to OpenAI, backed by over $13 billion. They built custom supercomputers for OpenAI, integrated OpenAI tech deeply into Copilot's Azure OpenAI service. With the end of exclusivity, Microsoft is pivoting slightly. They're emphasizing their software ecosystem, the integration points, reportedly exploring their own AI chips too, maybe Athena.
Interesting.
And sources suggest Microsoft might even be scaling back some Azure data center expansion plans now that OpenAI has diversified, perhaps focusing more on integrating AI into their existing enterprise software stack, less on being the sole massive engine for OpenAI.
Shifting focus. And Google Cloud.
Well, this OpenAI deal really solidifies their position as a high-performance, maybe even neutral arbiter of AI compute.
Yeah.
They lead with their TPU technology and strong AI research background. They've already attracted other big AI players like Anthropic earlier, Safe AI, even Apple for R&D using TPUs. Landing OpenAI, despite the direct product competition with Gemini, just underscores this neutrality. It says Google Cloud is open for business with anyone who needs serious AI power.
Even our rivals.
Very much.
What about beyond the big three? Anyone else significant in this compute race?
Definitely. Players like Oracle Cloud are making huge bets, building massive NVIDIA GPU clusters, planning over 130,000 Blackwell GPUs, apparently, partnering with NVIDIA and AI companies like Cohere. And Oracle is crucially involved in that staggering $500 billion Stargate project.
Right, the SoftBank and OpenAI initiative, $500 billion.
Yeah, led by SoftBank's Masayoshi Son. The goal seems to be building these dedicated, massive AI data centers globally. It could potentially reduce long-term reliance on public clouds, augment national AI capacities. They're planning things like Stargate UAE. It's ambitious.
And they're smaller specialized players, too.
Absolutely. Companies like CoreWeave, they've signed billion-dollar deals directly with OpenAI, specifically for GPU capacity. So OpenAI isn't just going to the big clouds. They're using specialists where it makes sense.
The trend is
What?
massive scale, complex relationships.
Massive scale, breakneck hardware innovation, and these complex, sometimes contradictory relationships where competitors are also collaborators. The key constraint is that demand for compute just massively outstrips supply. Even Google Cloud's CFO admitted recent capacity shortages. This crunch is forcing creative partnerships and absolutely massive building projects.
So the state of the art in 2025 isn't just about who has the smartest AI model.
No, it's just as much about who has access to the raw, specialized compute power. It's become as critical as the algorithms or the data itself.
Given this incredibly intricate picture, let's talk benefits. Who really wins from this partnership? And how does that translate into value for someone like you in the enterprise listening to this?
Okay, let's break down the upsides. For OpenAI, the biggest win is simple: scaling to meet demand. This gives them access to significant additional compute beyond Azure, reduces the risk of hitting those capacity ceilings that could really impact their services and growth.
Avoids those frustrating
Yeah.
ChatGPT is at capacity messages.
Hopefully, yes. It also brings resilience. Diversifying away from just Azure reduces the risk of vendor lock-in, provides a fallback if Azure has issues, gives them more control, more options.
And leverage, as you mentioned.
And leverage, probably. There are potential technical advantages, too. Experimenting with Google's TPUs could yield performance or efficiency gains for certain models. Plus, they get indirect exposure to Google's deep AI infrastructure expertise. And crucially, this deal lets them maintain their vital relationship with Microsoft, their key investor, their go-to-market partner via Azure OpenAI service, while accessing capacity and tech from Google. Best of both worlds, potentially.
Microsoft's enterprise reach plus Google's raw compute and global network.
Exactly. Now, for Google Cloud, it's a huge business win, obviously. OpenAI is a marquee customer, bringing in substantial revenue. But it also massively boosts their credibility in the enterprise AI space. The message is, if we can power OpenAI, we can power anyone's demanding AI workload.
Validation for their tech.
Absolutely. It validates their massive investment in TPUs, shows their custom hardware is competitive and desirable at the highest level, attracts other customers to try TPUs, and it reinforces that positioning as a neutral cloud provider. Unlike Microsoft with OpenAI or Amazon with Anthropic, Google Cloud is saying, we'll power any AI leader, even our product competitors. That really appeals to companies wanting compute without getting locked into one AI vendor's ecosystem.
Okay, that makes sense for OpenAI and Google. Now, for you, the enterprise AI user listening, what's in it for them?
Right, this is where it gets practical for listeners. First, you should hopefully see improved reliability and performance from OpenAI services. More compute capacity means more stability, less latency, better handling of peak loads, fewer frustrations.
Faster responses, more uptime.
That's the goal. Second, there's potential for faster innovation and maybe even cost benefits down the line. More compute lets OpenAI train and deploy more advanced models, like maybe GPT-5, sooner. And the intense competition among cloud providers for these AI workloads, driven by deals like this, should hopefully put downward pressure on pricing and drive innovation in cost-effective hardware like TPUs.
Competition is good for the customer.
Generally, yes. Third, and this is crucial for enterprises, potentially broader accessibility and easier integration. If you're already a Google Cloud customer, having OpenAI services running within the Google Cloud ecosystem could mean simpler integration, lower data transfer costs out of Google Cloud, and maybe even options for sovereign cloud deployments, keeping data within your country using OpenAI models via Google's trusted regions. That's big for compliance in places like the EU.
Right. Data residency is key for many.
Definitely. And finally, you can leverage ecosystem synergy. If you use Google Cloud services like BigQuery for data warehousing or Vertex AI for ML pipelines, integrating OpenAI models running on Google Cloud alongside those tools becomes much more seamless, enables powerful new analytics and application use cases.
So overall, more reliable, potentially faster, better integrated access to cutting-edge AI for businesses.
That's the value proposition for the end user, yes.
Okay, can you give us some concrete examples? What specific business applications become more feasible or just better because of this extra compute muscle?
Sure. Think about more sophisticated AI assistants tailored specifically for your enterprise. With access to more powerful models and infrastructure, companies can deploy internal corporate GPTs.
Like an internal expert system.
Exactly, one that can handle much larger volumes of complex internal documents for knowledge management. Or provide real-time decision support by analyzing streaming financial data, for instance. The scale is key, processing vast amounts of proprietary data quickly, securely.
What about specific industries?
Lots of potential. In healthcare, using OpenAI models within Google Cloud's IPA-compliant environment becomes more practical. Think medical record analysis, secure doctor AI assistants, leveraging Google's existing healthcare data tools. In finance, running risk modeling or generating regulatory reports using OpenAI models on Google Cloud infrastructure, where sensitive financial data might already live. That improves data governance, reduces data transfer headaches.
Less data movement, better security.
Right. For manufacturing, maybe interpreting sensor data streams from IoT devices, using Google's big data tools combined with OpenAI's natural language capabilities. Imagine getting alerts like, Machine X likely to fail soon because of vibration pattern Y, explained in plain English.
That's powerful.
Or customer service. Combining Google's telephony services with OpenAI's language models could lead to more human-like, efficient, reliable, automated agents that can handle much more complex queries. And for business analytics teams, imagine using OpenAI models hosted on Google Cloud almost like business analysts. They could answer complex natural language questions about your company data stored in BigQuery. Makes insights much more accessible.
Democratizing data analysis.
In a way, yes. And remember, this partnership doesn't just enable brand new things, it amplifies existing use cases. Features in ChatGPT Enterprise, like securely connecting to company knowledge bases. They should become more stable, potentially handle larger contexts more effectively because there's just more compute power behind them.
Got it. Let's circle back to that co-opetition idea again. How does Google powering OpenAI really work day to day, given that ChatGPT is a direct competitor to Google's own Gemini models? Isn't there a huge conflict of interest?
It's a classic example of how these tech giants operate now. They compete fiercely in one area, AI models, applications, while being critical partners in another, like infrastructure. OpenAI is a customer of Google Cloud.
So like Apple and Samsung compete on phones, but Samsung supplies screens to Apple.
Exactly like that. It requires very strict internal separation, often called a firewall, between Google Cloud, the infrastructure seller, and Google's AI product teams like DeepMind, building Gemini. Google Cloud's business objective is simple. Sell compute power to anyone who'll pay. DeepMind's goal is to build the best AI models. The substantial revenue Google Cloud gets from OpenAI is a powerful incentive to keep that firewall strong and keep the compute flowing reliably.
So for Google's parent company, Alphabet, it's kind of a strategic hedge.
Precisely. They profit via Google Cloud, even if OpenAI's ChatGPT gains more traction than Gemini in certain markets. If Gemini lags, Google Cloud still wins. If Gemini wins, their product side wins. It's sort of a win-win setup for Alphabet, infrastructure-wise.
What's the risk for Google, though? Aren't they helping a major rival get stronger?
That is the risk. They are effectively supercharging a competitor. But they've clearly calculated that the revenue, the market validation for Google Cloud, and maybe the strategic insights they gain from powering such a cutting-edge AI model are worth that risk. It's a calculated trade-off.
Okay. How does this ripple out to the other players? Microsoft Azure, for instance.
Well, Azure loses that powerful OpenAI exclusivity narrative. That's a blow, symbolically at least. While OpenAI will absolutely still be a massive Azure customer, likely increasing consumption, Microsoft is no longer the only game in town for OpenAI's massive needs.
So Microsoft needs to adjust its pitch.
Seems like it. They still have huge advantages through their deep investment in product integrations. Azure OpenAI service, copilots are tightly woven in. But they're likely shifting focus now, pushing their own AI efforts harder, emphasizing that software ecosystem integration.
And Amazon AWS. They backed Anthropic heavily.
Right. AWS might see this as a missed opportunity to snag a piece of the OpenAI workload. They'll continue pushing Anthropic, their custom chips, and their platform-neutral Bedrock offering. But Google landing OpenAI is definitely a strong signal in the market for high-performance AI compute, making it harder for AWS to woo OpenAI now.
So the whole market gets shaken up.
Yeah, it drives more intense competition, more investment in custom AI chips, bigger infrastructure builds across the board. Ultimately, that competition probably benefits enterprise customers through more choice, better price performance over time. The fight isn't just about the models anymore. It's very much about who provides the best, most efficient compute.
Okay, so we've mapped out the benefits, the competitive chess moves, but making something this complex work across two different tech giants, it must have serious challenges, right? What are the big hurdles here?
Oh, absolutely. The sources point to several key challenges. First off, the technical integration itself is complex. Getting OpenAI's workloads, often tuned for NVIDIA GPUs and Azure's specific environment, to run efficiently on Google Cloud, especially on TPUs. That's non-trivial engineering. Requires code adaptation, careful performance tuning.
And managing data across two clouds.
Huge challenge. Ensuring data consistency, managing security, handling potentially massive data movement between Azure and Google Cloud. That adds layers of complexity and potential cost. Think data synchronization, low latency networking.
Then there's the security and privacy angle.
Paramount. Especially for enterprise customers using OpenAI. OpenAI handles sensitive data, and now some of that data could reside on Google's infrastructure. Google Cloud has strong contractual obligations, robust security, but ensuring data isolation, confidentiality, preventing any special access by Google's own AI teams, given they compete directly, that requires constant vigilance and proof.
Compliance, too, like GDPR across multi-cloud.
Exactly. Compliance becomes more complex. Enterprise customers need solid assurances about data handling, encryption, potentially confidential computing.
What about managing that co-opetition relationship itself? The trust factor.
It's delicate. You've got Google Cloud relying on OpenAI revenue, OpenAI relying on Google Compute, but their product teams are direct rivals. What happens during resource crunches? Chip shortages. Who gets priority?
Potential for conflict.
There is. It requires really strong governance, clear boundaries, those internal firewalls we talked about. Trust is crucial and can erode if not managed carefully. It's like dancing on a narrow ledge, as one source aptly put it.
Any other big challenges?
Well, from OpenAI's side, while they gain diversification, they also build dependency on another major provider, Google Cloud. This contributes to the overall concentration risk most major AI models running on just a few hyperscale clouds. And then there's the sheer cost and complexity of managing operations, billing, optimizing workloads across two different clouds to ensure cost effectiveness. That's a significant overhead requiring specialized skills, strong FinOps practices.
Regulatory risks.
Yeah, they increase with multi-cloud too. Adhering to global rules like the EU AI Act, tracing data residency, managing incident response across distributed systems, it all gets more complex.
This is success isn't guaranteed. Lots of execution risk.
Definitely not guaranteed. It requires careful technical execution, robust security, sophisticated relationship management. But for enterprises listening, these challenges are also valuable lessons on the complexities and potential rewards of managing a multi-cloud strategy effectively.
All right, let's bring this all back home. What does this partnership, with all its strategic maneuvering, complexities, benefits, what does it really mean for you, the business executive listener? What are the key takeaways? What should you be thinking about for your own strategy?
Okay, the biggest takeaway is probably validation. At the highest level, this validates the multi-cloud trend. If OpenAI, a leader in AI innovation, needs multiple clouds to meet its compute needs and manage risk, it signals something important.
That relying on just one vendor might be limiting.
Exactly. While single cloud might seem simpler short-term, it could limit your access to the best AI capabilities or specialized compute, and definitely increases vendor lock-in risk. This partnership proves that a thoughtful multi-cloud approach can offer resilience and access to best-of-breed tech.
So think about building an architecture that can mix and match.
Yes, an architecture that can leverage the best tools from different providers. Maybe data storage from one, specialized AI processing from another, unique PAHI services from a third. The era of needing one vendor for everything, especially for innovation seekers, might be ending. Think containers, APIs, abstraction layers for flexibility.
Keep an eye on how cloud providers integrate these AI services.
Definitely. Google Cloud might make using OpenAI models much more seamless for its customers now. Azure will keep building on its strong integration. Your strategy needs the flexibility to incorporate the best options wherever they come from.
What about accelerating AI projects? Does this help?
It should boost confidence. The fact that OpenAI is securing this massive compute capacity signals the industry is scaling up to meet demand. If you are hesitant about widespread AI deployment due to concerns about model stability or capacity, well, this suggests it's becoming more feasible. Time to move from pilots to production for proven use cases.
What if you're heavily invested in just one cloud now, say Google Cloud?
If you're already a Google Cloud shop, this partnership likely means easier, maybe more performant, access to OpenAI services down the line. Talk to your Google Cloud reps about their integration plans.
And if you're an Azure or AWS loyalist?
This doesn't mean you can't use OpenAI via Azure, obviously, but it might mean evaluating a multi-model strategy more seriously. Using GPT-4 via Azure, maybe Anthropic's Claude via AWS, maybe Google's own models, or even OpenAI via Google Cloud APIs eventually. The key is ensuring your architecture is somewhat model agnostic.
So, concrete recommendations for building that multi-cloud strategy.
Focus on core principles. Harmonize your data strategy, maybe one primary data lake, but allow secure access and processing from multiple clouds. Use cloud-neutral tools where possible. Invest heavily in security and identity management that spans all your cloud environments. Plan for portability, have a contingency. And use strong vendor management to negotiate terms and avoid lock-in.
And for the executives listening, the CIOs, CTOs, strategy leads.
Think strategically. This partnership shows creative arrangements are becoming common. Consider strategic partnerships beyond standard vendor deals. Invest in internal multi-cloud and AI skills. You need people who can evaluate, integrate, and manage these complex systems. Understand the rising costs of AI compute and implement robust FinOps. And factor in sovereignty and compliance. Multi-cloud can actually be a tool here, using specific regions for specific data.
So the big lesson is flexibility, adaptability.
Absolutely. The AI landscape is dynamic, fueled by this race for compute. Adaptability, leveraging capabilities wherever they're strongest, understanding this complex dance of competition and collaboration, that's critical. Learn from how the big players are navigating it to inform your own path.
Looking ahead then, what's the trajectory? What does this partnership signal for the future of AI infrastructure and enterprise AI more broadly?
Well, it suggests this multi-vendor relationship for major AI players like OpenAI is likely the new normal. It might deepen, maybe co-innovation happens, or it could stay purely infrastructure driven by efficiency. Pragmatism over old alliances seems key. Cloud choices based on performance and price for AI, not just history.
What about the bigger mega trends in AI infrastructure?
They're accelerating. Compute demand will keep exploding, doubling every 6-12 months, some say. That fuels these giant data center projects like Stargate. AI compute is becoming a fundamental resource like electricity. The custom silicon race will intensify NVIDIA versus Google TPU versus AWS Trainium versus Microsoft's rumored chip versus startups. Hardware innovation is critical. We'll see more multi-model AI using different models together. And sovereign or specialized clouds will grow, offering alternatives to the big hyperscalers for specific needs. And AI as a service will just become embedded everywhere.
Any potential disruptions on the horizon?
Sure. What if OpenAI's own chip efforts succeed dramatically? That could reduce their cloud dependency. What if open source models truly reach GPT-4 level performance? That changes the game. And of course, regulations, strict AI rules could significantly impact these global partnerships and deployments.
And new use cases enabled by all this power.
Think AI agents that don't just talk, but do things: booking flights, managing email, controlling software. Requires massive, reliable infrastructure, real-time collaborative AI in meetings, in design tools. Low-latency networking becomes crucial, and highly domain-specific AI, fine-tuned for industries like law or medicine, the compute power makes that more feasible.
So the future is more AI, bigger infrastructure, and this complex balancing act.
Exactly. Greater AI integration, massive infrastructure growth, and this ongoing cooperation competition balancing act. Staying informed, adaptable, and focused on responsible AI deployment is absolutely key for any organization.
Okay, maybe a final provocative thought for our listeners based on all this.
How about this? This partnership shows that even the absolute leaders in AI, like OpenAI, are navigating a complex, multi-vendor world just to get the fundamental compute power they need. As an enterprise leader, how truly prepared are you to embrace that same complexity? Are you building a strategy flexible enough to leverage the best capabilities from across vendors rather than relying on a single relationship to ensure you stay competitive in this AI race?
It's definitely a challenging question and a crucial one as AI becomes more central. What a fascinating deep dive into this partnership and its ripple effects.
It really highlights the foundational role infrastructure now plays in the AI revolution.
Thank you for joining the podcast, and see you soon.